It may have taken 20th Century Fox almost a decade before they even got back to the Alien franchise, but when they did, they ended up making somewhat of a masterpiece. A sequel that rivals the original and stands firmly in the history of sci-fi horror as one of the best. Most of this comes from the young up-and-coming director, James Cameron, who at this point in time, we know him for his hilariously over CGI'd blue monkey people in Avatar. While it was no cakewalk for the cast and crew to get this project moving, what the end product delivers is a classic 80s film. This is Aliens.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Aliens' plot is very simple, while still maintaining its deep source of lore. Ripley has been in stasis for over 50 years since she and the rest of the crew on the Nostromo encountered an alien life form that destroyed the ship and killed the crew. Ripley was saved by the same company that sent her there, Weyland-Yutani Corp. Despite having PTSD from these past events, her therapist and the bigwigs at Weyland pushed for Ripley to help lead a manhunt with the Marines on the exomoon LV-426, the same moon that the Nostromo crew found the facehugger. The new condition of this exomoon is that Weyland has turned it into a terraforming colony, but they have lost contact with it. Ripley tried multiple times to warn them about the xenomorph, but they didn't care. Ripley only agrees to go on this mission as long as they destroy the creature if they run into it. We are then introduced to our Marines, and they are all walks of different life. What's interesting here is that the way they look and dress and how they interact with each other. The actors had to undergo boot camp training, and they got to decorate and build their own armor, which these activities lead to better rapport with their fellow actors. The Marines' offer for this film is much the same as the Nostromo crew, but this time they're batshit insane and they're packing lots of firepower. When they arrive at LV-426, it looks the same as always, like a barren rock covered by an eternal night. Winds thrash about harshly and there's no vegetation or life. The colony's main entrance is in rough shape, and as the Marines enter, they begin to find signs of battles, holes blown through roofs and walls, barricaded doors, and a little girl who carries around the head of her doll. This girl's name is Newt, and she's the sole survivor of this colony. In a way, she serves as a replacement for Ripley's cat Jonesy, but this time, she's a little bigger and she's an actual human. Ripley takes a quick interest in her, having both survived the terror brought by the xenomorph. So where's the rest of the crew? We know the Xenos obviously overpowered them and took the ones they wanted the most to impregnate. This is the fun of the simple title this movie has. It's not Alien 2. It's Aliens, with a plural S at the end. Unlike last time, there are multiple xenomorphs running around in this colony, and the Marines coming in ready to gun these nightmare bugs back to hell. Because there are so many of these aliens, it proves quite difficult for the Marines to hold back the onslaught the Xeno delivers each round, cutting down the number of survivors. Of course, it was also revealed that Weyland has brought along its own scientists and synthetic. Again, the real hopes is not killing the creature, but capturing them to use for their evil science experiments. Ripley is not surprised at this twist, but the Marines are pissed. From the halfway point all the way to the end of this film, it commits to a genre blend, leaving behind the horror and actively fighting against their opponents as an action flick. It seems to be a convenience that this film was made in the 80s, when CGI was not an industry standard and too expensive. The effects in this film are almost entirely practical, and with the help of shooting on film, it adds a grittiness to the image on screen that leaves a grim impression on the viewer. Aliens gets a 5 out of 5 from me. Historically, this movie is big, and represents a lot about how Hollywood feels about any other genre that isn't drama. This time around, they seem to appreciate the filmmaker's approach, as well as Sigourney Weaver's performance, earning her an Academy nomination. I personally have very little criticism for this film. In fact, the only major issue I have is with how long it takes for Ripley, Weyland, and the Marines to get boots on the ground at LV-426. I mean, it's like almost half an hour of watching Ripley sit around with Jonesy the cat while she's trying to process her PTSD. But honestly, after Ripley agrees to go on this rescue mission, the story picks up, and as you pass through each sequence, the film gets a little more and more intense. The stakes are high, and I would argue that this naturally comes into play when xenomorphs are involved. The Xenomorphs. I have talked about their design before, but what I wanted to point out is that they have updated their suits on the Xenomorph. Still humanistic in appearance, they are a bit more smoother with their movements, and they blend in with their environments. At one point, a character is walking along a black shiny hallway when it is revealed that a xenomorph was hiding inside it. There's also a fun explanation why they look like people wearing costumes. 1. Yes, that's just a fact. But 2. Whatever the creature the facehugger lays its eggs into, the newborn will take on the qualities of its host. The base was inhabited by humans. These are xenomorphs born from humans. The most badass addition to this movie and for the overall Alien franchise is the introduction of the Queen. The Queen xenomorph is massive in comparison to her children. She bears a large crown around her head to show her size and superiority, but also due to her size, she lumbers around, especially in small places like this destroyed outpost they discover her in. It's amazing how fast you realize with your own intuition that xenomorphs behave like insects, an inspiration that's briefly shown in the original. Here you can see hordes of aliens crawling out of their holes by the dozens, like an infestation. Then there's when Ripley goes deeper in the base. She finds black gooey webs draping each room, before discovering the Queen laying more face-hugging pods. The Queen here looks to have grown an extension on her tail to allow this to happen, but when under the threat by Ripley, she simply breaks away from this extension. I would liken this to a queen ant who would bury herself deep into a nest in order to find peace to lay her eggs, back to being insectoids. By the end of the film, there is one final match-off, and it's the reprise of the Queen, now in the cargo bay, looking to steal Newt from Ripley, who has sealed her away. Ripley jumps into an exosuit that's a mesh-up between a forklift and a grippy-grabby thing for when things are really high on shelves. The two battle it out over who gets the girl. It's a fight about two mothers. So Ripley is still our badass Hermione like before. One last thing to mention was that I knew the actor Bill Paxton was in this film since he delivers the famous line,
"That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now?"
But higher up, Colonel Hicks looks super familiar to me, and I had realized, after a few hours of watching and editing the classic Western movie Tombstone, that Hicks was played by an actor named Michael Behan. What I learned about Behan being on this film was that Cameron had someone else in mind for the character, but it didn't work out so close to shooting. The director swapped out actors and called for his close friend Behan. The two had worked together on Cameron's previous film, Terminator. Okay, Aliens is a blast. Despite how old this movie is today, it's still intense and gripping. My favorite part of my experience was rewatching this with Judgmental Critter, who was very captivated by the events of this film. It was a whole experience for her. So tell me, what do you like about Aliens? Everyone who's seen this movie likes it. So far I haven't met that contrarian, but maybe one day I will. Thank you for watching. Bye.